very concerned about development in our city right now. In fact, that's one of the reasons that we listed in bringing this TDIF forward. We were in an economic downturn, there's no question about that. But the problem that we're having is in residential housing. We still have very strong development in commercial development. We have industrial development that's occurring. That's the reason that our assessed valuation is going up, and we're predicting a 10% increase in overall assessed valuation this year. So while there's no question that that there's problems with mortgages, there's problems with subprime lenders, real estate values are dropping. There's still a lot of commercial activity that's occurring in Chula Vista. One of the ways that we can ensure that commercial development occurs, and one of the ways that we can position ourselves for a strong, solid rebound of our building industry, is to ensure that developers do not have to bear an unreasonable amount of charges when they bring development projects forward. The only way to do that is to have fees that pool these charges and allow us to significantly reduce the cost of major transportation improvements. If every development that's proposed has to pay the full cost of its street improvements, of its highway interchanges, of its transit system, that cost would be prohibitive, and that's what would bring residential, commercial, and industrial development to a stop, if they all had to pay the full cost of that. What this fee does is it allows us to allow those transportation projects to go forward. It allows us to pool the fees of developments so that no individual development has an unreasonable burden. Without a fee like this, the actual transportation impact of commercial, industrial, and residential development would be prohibitive in many cases. And that's part of the reason that we feel that we need to bring this forward right now, and that the effect that it will have is just the opposite of what we feel is being presented. It'll actually make commercial development, I won't say more affordable, but it will allow it to go forward while still bearing and defraying the full cost of the transportation improvements, which are some of the most expensive costs that individual developers have to deal with. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Griffin, did you or your staff have any other clarifying comments?
None of us are economics majors or anything like that, so we'll probably, we understand. City manager's an economics major, so one of the issues that we were very sensitive to was the commercial fees, and so we certainly don't want to create a fee that would render commercial development infeasible. We did try to vet our fees through our housing and redevelopment department, since they have the direct contacts with the development community, with the commercial community, in terms of looking at it and seeing if they thought it would create price points that were causing projects to not pencil. Obviously, that's a bit of a subjective analysis. I would also note, with respect to commercial rates, and Frank or Dave might jump in because the technical part of this I might not be as good at, but we did, as we've done in the East, attempt to discount the commercial rate by assuming that 70% of the trips that a commercial development would generate are being caused by the increased residential development in the area. So it was to not double count those trips. So for instance, if a new commercial development went in, we're assuming that 70% of the trips coming to that new commercial development are coming from the residential area within the city, and therefore those new residential developments would be paying for those trips. We wouldn't then charge the commercial for the exact same trips. And so we have built into the system a manner in which to not double count trips against commercial development. It's in the RTCIP that Sandag has, it's in our Eastern TDIF, and so we've done, we think we've done what we can to ameliorate the issues on the non-residential development to the extent that we can.
I'd like to add also that the issue with the cost for Interstate 5, that they're proportional to the amount of traffic that's going to increase in western Chula Vista onto I-5. And so that's how we got the 8% or just over 8% of the cost of the I-5 improvements within the city limits, only within the city limits. 8.2% is what's created by the increase in traffic volumes onto the freeway. And then I think that when you look at that, that's less than half of what we typically need for federal funds, which are at about 20%. There are some that are 11.5%. So we're still short of at least 3% to 12% in order to get state and federal funds. And what's used typically to fund that 3 to 12% gap is in some instances Transnet. And so you see that Transnet will keep coming up, that we tend to use that for a lot of our street network, but the 8% doesn't even allow us to provide that minimum match. So we have to go to the regions such as Sandag to see if we can get additional funds to get our local match, to get state and federal funds.
That's it? Staff? Mr. Castaneda?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got a couple questions about the Sandag fee, first of all. And so the way that the initiative that was ultimately passed by the voters was written, that we have to establish $2,000 per dwelling unit fee in order to be eligible for Sandag Transnet funding for whatever projects we want.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, is that a blanket $2,000 fee? In other words, not just in South County, but in North County and East County, and I mean, is that virtually region-wide?
It's a countywide minimum $2,000 fee on all new residences.
So in other words, if I want to build a multifamily dwelling structure complex in Pilsura, they charge me $2,000, I can be essentially eligible for the same fees that we build here in Chula Vista with the infrastructure already here. And, you know, I mean, does that seem fair?
Well, no matter where you build,
It's the postage stamp theory. In other words, you know, you pay 41 cents whether you mail a letter across the street or you send it across the country.
no matter where you build in San Diego County, if you build a new residential unit, you're subject to the minimum $2,000 fee. That assumes that those local jurisdictions have adopted the fee. If they haven't, then they put at risk not getting their Transnet fund.
But I'm just saying, the $2,000 fee is the same virtually irrespective of the amount of infrastructure that's needed and the investment that's required.
That's correct.
Okay, well, that makes a lot of sense.